Welcome back, everyone, to Strange Planet Podcast. And my God, where to even begin with the past couple of weeks here? I don't even really know, to tell you the truth, because there's no possible way we can incorporate all the destruction Trump and his administration's probably done into one episode. So we're going to have to nitpick a few things as we go along here, because we got everything from the national anthem being booed in Canada, which is arguably understandable, to Macron, rather, who's correcting Trump because he clearly doesn't understand how loans and the situation works there, to you name it at this point. It's basically the case. One thing it definitely underlines is the fact that when a clown moves into a palace, it doesn't make the clown a king, it turns the palace into a circus, because that's exactly what's happening right now. So where to begin? I have no idea, to be totally honest. What do you guys have to say about the craziness and idiocracies that's been going on here politically?
I have one for you, G.
All right.
Your favorite digital currency to bash on, Trump's Trump's Dogecoin or whatever coin he has, the Trump coin.
Yeah, it's the Trump coin. Elon Musk supports Dogecoin and also is associated with the Department of Government Energy coin, also Doge. But go on.
Yeah, apparently the Trump coin collapsed and its supporters lost about $12 billion.
And there's a shocker, right?
Not at all. I mean, I'm surprised it didn't happen when he cashed out his first $80 billion.
It's unreal, man. It's just like,
well,
go ahead.
I mean, like, the question is still, and we don't know this, whether, his initial sell-off was, something that some sort of vehicle for financiers to sort of buy power from Trump.
So it did happen just before.
It was right before his presidency. He put out this coin to a private group of investors before he released it publicly and got a whole lot of initial funding. And so we don't know who these investors are. And then he sold, billions of dollars worth and put that in his pocket.
Yep.
Now, ordinarily, investors might be a little angry at losing billions of dollars. But if they are people who invested not necessarily to gain money, but to buy influence, then they win. That's basically their intent.
That definitely makes sense in this situation.
I know that there's a bill that just got proposed to, stop this from happening in the future, where a presidential candidate can, sell a meme coin and cash in on it. It's kind of too late. I mean, but that really set a precedent that, when politicians become famous and, they have millions and millions of supporters, they can take advantage of that situation in several ways. Previous politicians have written books and given speeches after they left office in exchange for money. But this is different. This is basically an investment and a politician selling an investment to, their supporters. And they know they're fanatical when you get to the level of a presidential candidate or a president, then you're going to have a lot of passionate supporters who will go out and buy the crypto you're hawking just because they're passionate supporters of yours.
Even sell their best truck to do so.
Right.
And, if it's, if this was a company that Trump owned, and he went out and sold stock in it. Um, that would be questionable already. But because it's in crypto and it's unregulated and we don't know who these investors are
Right.
that, initially, um, were sold Trump coin, it just makes the whole thing just reek of some type of corruption. Will we ever know? Well,
Who
if we
knows?
ever if we ever get a chance to investigate through um, regaining the power in government, sure. Now, of course, Republicans will protest about that, but they should be investigating now. It's their job in Congress to, sort of oversee these things and make sure that corruption isn't going on. When you have that type of behavior that's suspicious like that, it should be investigated. No one, I mean, if Obama or Biden, hold on, damn it. If Obama or Biden did something similar, an
Yeah.
Obama coin or a Biden coin,
Be up
like
in arms.
they would, have congressional hearings the next day.
Yeah.
Right.
But because it's Trump and Republicans own the Congress, nothing, crickets. And in fact, one of the things that pissed me off that I've seen, this past week is, so there was in on the, I forget what committee it was, but essentially a Democratic congressman was in a committee. He was recognized to speak by the Republican chair, and he proceeded to call the president a grifter,
Oh yeah.
which,
Yep. I heard about this.
he is, I mean, essentially a fucking grifter.
Yeah, he ain't
Um,
wrong.
he called him a grifter in chief, and the Republican chair, stopped him, stopped his speech, and, you know, said that, he would have him removed from the hearing if he were to
Hmm.
keep proceeding along those lines in terms of calling Trump a grifter. That
Bit of freedom of speech.
I was
that
just gonna
is
say that.
dangerous. That is
Much for the freedom of
dangerous
expression, right?
because it's not like it's meant to sort of control what politicians can debate. And the foundation of our democracy is debate. Like when we have issues to resolve, they need to be debated.
Right.
The place to debate them is in Congress. If you aren't allowed to debate openly and freely in Congress, if you aren't allowed to criticize administration policy or the president's actions or characterize the president's actions, that is wrong, and it runs contrary to our democracy.
Hmm.
It will have an effect of, well, if you can't, levy criticisms at the president, well, you just can't say anything.
It's like
You
they want you
you
to
just
just to
have to
fall
you
in
just have
line,
to let whatever happen, not, you know,
question it or anything.
not offer this line of fact or reasoning to the American public, not allow politicians to persuade the public around a set of facts. That is dangerous to democracy.
What's left of it here.
And yeah,
And that's the sad part because, like, what you're saying there is like basically they think they could kind of do whatever we want we're not allowed to question or debate it, and then we have to just fall in line. And what does that remind you of? What other country does that?
I mean, it's definitely showing the signs of dictatorship.
Yeah.
All the generals and sub generals and lieutenants or whatever, oh, you can't say anything about President Czar. You can't say anything about President Dictator. He is not dictator. He is president. You say no bad things about president. I mean, that's basically what they're doing. When it comes to real things, Republicans are basically asleep at the wheel. They're not doing anything. But when it comes to Trump, they're defending him. They're putting money in his pockets. Oh, is there anything else? Can I shine your shoes, sir? Can I
Let
pack
me
you a
wipe your
lunch, sir?
hands.
Can I suck your dick, sir? I mean, it's basically minion status for all
Yeah.
Republicans, and they don't even know. That's the funny part, is they don't even know what's going to happen to them. They just they're just going to kiss his feet, kiss his ring, and then when he's tired of them, he's going to dump them over the side like he's done everybody else.
I can't
That's
help I can't help but think in the long term of what's going on here, if there is even going to be a country, it's like this country was at once a very well-respected nation. And I feel like it's not anymore. And it's going to be freaking hard to get back to where we were on that standpoint, on like the global side of things.
Oh,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
like you know what I mean. And then even that aside, it's like this can't possibly just go on like this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because if it does, we're witnessing basically the American downfall right now. That's what's happening. This is the
Well,
end of like the American, because this country was so powerful that the only way it can be destroyed is from within. And that's where we are right now.
technically, yeah,
That's
this
what's
is
happening here.
talk about the deep state. This is definitely from within.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
And
Because most of us are not on board with a lot of this,
what
fortunately. But
what the
what can they do?
biggest test, or I should say probably the last test of where this country is going to be, able to stand up after this presidency, is if he gets elected again.
That's another thing I wanted to bring up, the fact that he's actually trying to get a third term.
Well,
Imagine that.
that's how it's going to start. It's going to be the third term, and like, oh, just make me king. You know what I'm saying?
Right? But imagine if Obama did that. If he was like, you know what, I'm just going to try to run for a
We
You know
third.
have
what?
to
I
we have to
think I might
stop
run
saying
for a
that.
third term.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. Like,
yeah.
never mind the rules. You
He
know.
said that. He said that in the first term. He was like, yeah, they didn't let me come back. Maybe we should get a third term after. It's just he was planning this from the get go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Nobody
that's
Yeah,
really
very true.
no,
understands it, but he
I don't even think that's really that much of a concern. I don't think his goal is to have a third term as president.
I don't think he's
Yeah,
going to
goal
get
is
if
it
he
to
in
put
can,
as
anyway.
it'd
much
be
money
nice. He already
as
got
possible.
he already got his goal.
Yeah, which
His
is where he
goal
is now. Right.
was to avoid going to prison and to make himself more money than he ever has in his life.
Right. Two
He
check
is
marks right
achieving
there.
both of those goals. Now, obviously, that is not enough for him because he's also enacting these policies, or he's allowing them to be enacted. And there's two theories that I have. Either one, he's just so um, vindictive that he's willing to engage in this sort of behavior to get back at people who, prosecuted him and um, criticized him and made him look like the fool that he is. That's one possibility. The other is that it may be the case that he owes things to people
Hmm.
and
The plot thickens.
he has to carry out these things in order to pay them back for getting him elected.
That's a very big possibility. I hear you there.
Um, so, if they want these policies, and this is what I'm leaning towards, because he hasn't shown himself to be that concerned with policy. Like he says things, but he really doesn't give a shit.
Right,
Um,
right, right.
he's Republicans really don't give a shit about policy. Honestly, they
Well,
don't.
clearly.
Unless it's enriching, you know, the billionaire class. That's pretty much the only consistent policy that they have, and abortion, getting rid of abortion.
Right.
Um, and that's pretty much the extent of their policy. They don't have a healthcare policy. They don't have um, a policy for education. The policy for education now is just get rid of the education department
Yeah.
and let the
Right.
state
Because that makes
educate
sense, right? Like
kids. Because
idiots.
why? I mean, so the problem with that is that it sort of allows states like to indoctrinate children in terms of,
Anything.
alternative facts. So you'll have things like teaching the Civil War, if they even teach that, as the War of Northern Aggression,
Mm,
even though it was basically the southern states, leaving and saying, we're, I mean, in a way, it was a war of Northern Aggression because they left and we said, no, you're not leaving. Uh, you can't just like leave and take territory away from the United States government. But I mean, they like to teach it as, slavery had nothing to do with it. It's states' rights, and you will have generations of children in
Growing
those
up
in
thinking
those
that
states
slavery
growing
is
up
good.
that
hmm
that
Or not knowing the truth of real
not
history.
knowing the truth about slavery, that there was a war in this country fought over that.
Right.
Um, like people are poorly educated about history in general, but at least with national standards, you can ensure that there's some level of awareness of historical facts. Um, but if you allow states to do it with the level of extremism that there is, um, you'll have facts that aren't true being taught to children, and then those children growing up and becoming voters and not knowing the gravity of the history behind why things are the way they are now. And that is going to trigger a lot of turmoil in this country going forward because you'll have people operating on in two different realities.
Right.
And in
You figure
fact,
that's
That's
a whole
only one
generation.
reality.
that's only going to be part of it
Yeah, but
because
that's a whole generation that's going
there's
to be
going to be
completely like mind fucked.
there's going to with that there's also going to be no national standard of grades or anything. So you'll have some people who are in probably the liberal states will have higher IQs or higher math skills and English skills or whatever
Well,
because
I wouldn't say that necessarily there's higher IQs or
no, but I'm saying though you're
whatever,
going to have
It'll
but
some
be a different
areas.
education, is what he's
Yeah, you're
getting
going to have
at.
some
Yeah,
areas that'll
and it may
have
be incorrect when
better
it comes to
education
history.
in the sciences and the maths because we believe that those are important. And some states will be like, nah, it's going to be all religion and
That's a
our
possibility
view
too.
of
They
world
might start throwing
history.
religion. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Because this is that, as
well,
much as the Republicans want this to be a Christian nation, the real reality is we are a multicultural multi nation here. There's Buddhists, there's Muslim, there's Christians, there's Jews. Everyone's here. That's what makes America so great, realistically. You know what I
all right,
mean?
but
So
here's what I think. I think a lot of Trump voters are just fucking lazy.
yeah,
They got to the 21st century and they're realizing that the modern 21st century jobs are at least the ones that aren't, in the creator economy or the creative economy are going to be highly technical ones that they have to go to school for or otherwise, educate themselves on through years of hard work and study. Um, they realize, and a lot of them who are older realize that it's probably past, too late for them.
mm,
I mean, I would say it's never too late to learn something,
right, right.
but
It's true.
they probably don't want to go through the effort of retraining themselves. And so what they want to do is get something for nothing. And that
Mm.
means that, if they can't participate in this economy through their skills or by learning something new, they're going to participate in the economy by taking it.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes sense
and
right
and
there.
that is essentially what they're hoping that Trump does.
The only thing I would
Now,
add to that, not to cut
go
you
ahead.
off, but the only thing I would add to that is some of them, this is where like I like to say we're not entirely alike, but like some of them may actually want to, go to school, or maybe they do want to, but the problem is they can't afford it. So it's not an option because of the price. You know what I mean? So that's something we all could wrap around
Well,
because
you
that,
mean like college.
yeah, college
Um,
specifically, yeah. Like some of
right.
them
Also,
may want to,
there's
but they just can't afford it. And who wants to take out loans and then pay them back for 20 years? You know what I mean? And then I'm paying double what the initial tuition fee was. So like
also,
I kind of hear them on that. You know what I mean?
gee, one other thing to go along with that. Nobody has time.
But that's another thing,
Everybody's
yeah.
working 2, 3 jobs just to
Just to
make
get
ends meet.
by,
Where are you gonna
right?
go? When are you gonna find time to start studying and doing stuff like that?
Yeah,
When we're
that's another
when
Well,
we're growing up, that's all we
they
have.
find time to engage in social media
true.
and whine and bitch and watch Fox News or
OAN.
whatever. Yeah. I mean, they have time
You're
for
saying
that
that people
to
should
fill
trade their
their,
leisure time to
they fill,
unwind to try to better
yes.
themselves. Most people are going to say no because
Well,
most
I
people need that
mean,
unwinding time to just stay stable.
right. But if you're going to sort of take things by force, that like that's their alternative. They're not going to retrain, they're not going to learn anything. They're
Hmm.
going to want to participate in the economy by taking the economy by force.
Well, I,
Now,
I don't.
I don't think that Trump is or Trump's puppet masters are have that in mind for them. And
no, not at
so
all.
when they find out that they're not getting what they think they're getting with Trump, then they'll turn on him.
Right, right.
But in the process, a whole lot of people are going to be harmed,
Including
including
them
those
too.
people. Correct.
Yeah, including them as well, because this is the greatest con, I think, in American history. This
Oh
guy
yeah.
promised on day one, remember, eggs was going to drop? It's higher than it's ever been right
Okay,
now.
yeah, but I
Yeah,
mean
gas.
politicians promise things and they break them. No, I mean, like, it was an unrealistic promise to begin with. Day
Exactly,
one,
but they
something
believed it.
changes. Whether they believe it or not, who knows? There's a lot of things that probably go into someone's decision. He could have promised anything or, you know, nothing. They already liked Trump. It was a sort of, they vibed with Trump, whether regardless of his promises. He could have promised them, a goose that lays golden eggs, and they would have been like,
And they would have
fine.
believed it too.
Yeah. Like, so, like, they're not going to be mad that, his promises weren't kept or his promises, you know, weren't authentic or intended to come to fruition. What they're getting is, some sense of uh entitlement to be successful in this country. And they think by him winning, it reinforces their stature in this country
Hmm.
at a time when they're losing out because they're not keeping up.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense too. Now, let me ask you this though too. I feel like this might have been a wild card I'll throw in the mix. Now, I'm not going to say Biden's term was
No,
the best ever.
I will just say that that's a certain segment of Trump voters. Obviously, there are Trump voters who are highly successful, who are educated,
Yeah, right, right. There's
but I'm talking about ones who, are either lower middle class or poor, that are struggling and will complain about the things like the egg prices. I'm talking about that segment of the Trump voters.
Right,
Trump
right.
voters are there's a lot of different kinds of Trump voters. I'm
There
speaking
is. That is
specifically to
true.
that segment of them.
My
Now let me
favorite,
ask you this
my
though.
favorite. Hold on, my favorite Trump voters are the ones that work for the state, whatever department, FBI, whatever, and got fired.
And got fired.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, Trump won't have me fired; he'll have everybody else fired. And
Well, you
then
don't suckle to the teat. Yeah, you're getting canned whether you're on the team or not.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
Musk came
how it
in
works.
and fired everybody, and it's just like, but I voted for Trump. No, you're fired. Yeah,
Now let me ask you this though. This is the wild card I was going to bring up a few seconds ago. Do you think maybe there's a handful of them, or if not a majority of them, that voted for Trump not just because they like him or whatnot, but they felt like Biden didn't do enough? Maybe.
No,
No, you don't think so? Because I
no.
think Biden did a fair amount of good shit, and you know what I mean. Like he was not the far from the worst president, and at least we had democracy still somewhat intact at that point. You know what I mean? So, and it wasn't an oligarchy like it is now. You
Well,
know what I
look,
mean? And
look.
some people got some
Biden,
relief
Biden,
with the loans.
Biden got handed a mess by Trump.
Right. Yeah.
It was the middle of a pandemic that Trump was not prepared to
Neglecting.
deal with, and he didn't move fast enough on it. He publicized misinformation about it. He told
Mm,
people to inject themselves with disinfectant, essentially.
409.
bleach.
And he really engaged in this like sort of anti-vax culture that took place. And meanwhile, um, he did get the vaccine, and his government put out, the vaccine, but he always engaged with this anti-vax culture and the whole thing about not wearing masks. And I mean, it's just like,
Now we have one
okay,
running health department,
the,
don't
the,
we?
the, the thing about fucking masks is, come on, it's common sense. You put something in front of your face that covers where you inhale, and it protects you from, to some degree, not perfectly, it protects you to some degree from the particles of airborne diseases or viruses. Like, that's
Sadly,
just common sense.
sadly,
Now,
there are people in this country who will hear that and be like, "Fuck that! I ain't wearing a mask."
That's true.
right.
And
And
Yeah.
that's where it's like stops. It's just like,
and
But
it's
Trump
like
led that
it's
bandwagon.
like
That's the problem. He
no,
made it
well,
seem
it's
like it
like
was okay.
no, well, okay, so like if you so some people have an issue with,
or Taz.
being told to wear a mask, and so they're kind of like, kids where they're just like, oh, well, you told me to do it, now I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
Mm,
exactly.
Tell
It's
me
yeah,
what to
stupid
do.
mentality.
a kid
Like,
mentality.
and there's like a whole like empowerment thing about like, you can't tell me to wear a mask, like, but in reality it's like common sense. Like, there's a reason that, doctors put on masks, nurses, healthcare professionals put on masks. It's both to protect them from illnesses as well as to protect, patients from illnesses.
Right.
And so, like, you have to like recognize at some level that, masks aren't, 100% effective in protecting against the transmission of viruses like COVID, but they do help to some
Right.
degree. And all the
Right.
scientific studies show that they help to some degree. Now,
Yeah,
there are
it makes
different
sense.
types of masks that are better than others, but, and, there are different, ways of wearing masks that are more effective.
Scuba
But
helmet.
and there are other things that you have to do in terms of hygiene to maximize your protection against transmission. Now, we are, there's a recent level of, I wouldn't call it an outbreak, but a resurgence in terms of measles.
Mm,
And that's not good because we have, Secretary Brainworm in charge of Health and Human Services.
Right? Because that
Like,
makes sense.
this guy is batshit fucking crazy. And if measles,
We're gonna be dying from
breaks
friggin'
out,
hay fever.
like I'm afraid for this country because
We're going backward.
like we couldn't handle something, COVID was bad, it was deadly, but if there's a measles outbreak and people are like, I'm not gonna wear a mask, like we're fucked.
Yeah, it's true.
Look, we all know that there are going to be those people out there regardless. There could be fucking polio come back. And people will be like, oh, I'm not going to wear a mask. If you tell me what to do, I'm not going to do it.
I'm not going to take that polio vaccine.
And Brainworm says I don't need the vaccine, so I'm not going to take it.
I mean, I love the fact that this country is diverse, has a lot of different ideas coming back and forth. That helps, ping pong the table around, get around certain ideas, helps us figure things out, which is, awesome, which is what makes us one of the greatest countries in the world. Unfortunately, it brings those same fucking idiots that decide that they don't want to do something for, I don't know, they don't like it, they don't agree with it out of spite, which, believe it or not, is a lot of people will do it just strictly out of spite.
They make their decisions based off emotions rather than logic and reason.
And science, even. Yeah, like.
Oh, yeah. Fuck science. That definitely was the first 4 years of Trump's fucking presidency. It was like, science? I don't understand what it means. Those are false facts.
No, they want to get rid of
you'll have
education.
No,
so
people have selective like hearing and selective, reading,
memory.
Selective memory. And I think a lot of it has to do with social media. And the algorithms that we're subjected to on a daily basis.
And think about who owns these things too.
There's a lot more to discuss about that, but I will save that for another time.
Yeah,
I agree. And
definitely scratching the surface.
Right. And what's funny? We were talking about before about the mask thing. And it's funny because at that point in time, everybody was like, all the Republicans, oh, well, it's my body, my choice. I don't have to wear a mask if I don't want to. Yeah, and then fast forward a couple of years and they take the, reproductive rights away from women. And I guess so much for my body, my choice, huh? Yeah. That kind of went out the window now, huh? It's unbelievable, the hypocrisy. It really is sad.
It is sad because it's so far out into the open. It's like you would think they can't deny it. It's clear as day. And then here they sit and no, I didn't do anything like that. What are you talking about? We don't do anything like that.
Like it's just like
it's such a double standard.
Yeah,
that's double standard.
That really is. And social media, like we'll probably end up touching more on this in another episode, but I feel like that's a major catalyst to this whole thing too. It kind of maintains the whole circus, you know what I mean? And you think about who owns these fucking things, and it just makes even more sense because they're sitting in the room with Trump. Not to mention, we saw the hilarious cabinet meeting the other day. I mean, he's sitting there, looked like he was on his phone, and Musk is over there. You know what I mean? Looking like he's the president, which he arguably could be, but you know what I mean? It's just like, this is ridiculous. I've never seen anything like this in my life. All right, everyone. That's all we got for this week on this episode. Be sure to like, share, and comment. And may God help us all. We'll be back every Friday on YouTube. Thanks for watching. Peace.